Guys, back in 1968, mostly because that John Kennedy was killed, Martin Luther King was killed, Robert Kennedy was killed. There's a lot of people being knocked off, probably by the government. You cause something and then you create the problem and you give them the answer they don't want. Anyway, this Gun Control Act of 1968 was back in probably 93 or 94. I had a buddy come up to me at work, and he says, Fuzzy, he says, do you know that the 1968 gun law was based on fact by, it was lifted almost entirely from the Nazi legislation of 1938. No. I said, do you have any paperwork on it? He says, no. He says, my new girlfriend just come across it. And I said, well, see if you can get it for me. Well, you know, you really can't count on people. You got to do things yourself. But back at that time, you know, I didn't have no computer. I mean, I didn't get a computer until 2005, I think, 2006, something like that. Most of the stuff I got was, you know, what I found in newspapers. But anyway, I was looking around and I go, you know, I haven't really went back on that to check, see what was what. So anyway, gun control's Nazi connection. Duh. Just talk much fuzz? Okay, let's get up here. Startling evidence suggests that the Gun Control Act of 1968 was lifted almost in its entirety from Nazi legislation. And this is reference from the English translation plus a link to the original copy in German. Okay? Woo. That's what I've been looking for all this time. Yep. Proof that the U.S. gun law has Nazi roots. You know, people, we've got to get with the program here. You know, you got to realize that you have the God-given right to defend yourself. It is immoral to interfere with this unalienable individual right. And give up the idea of dialing 111 because it's a hoax. No one has a guaranteed right to police protection. We must also have all Americans have a full understanding of the 28 words that make up the Second Amendment. And again, we must demand that politicians explain their reasons for supporting any American law modeled on Nazi policies. Any excuse for this treachery should be political suicide for these people. That was treachery to bring this thing into law. You know, you got to remember, people, you're only going to get the gun laws that you're willing to tolerate. And if you get to a point where there's zero tolerance for gun control, then you'll be able to hang on to your right. Got to remember something. Political correctness is a poison. Nazis, communists, and socialists have built empires on it. However, if the psyche of America changes and it becomes shameful to call someone who is willing to defend their lives and the lives of a helpless person, if it changes enough that, you know, if you find somebody who's willing to defend your lives and the lives of a helpless gun nut, you know, this cultural taboo of being a gun nut or whatever, it'll all fade away. All Americans need to realize that the Charles Schumers and other gun prohibitionists of our country are mentally unbalanced and fear inanimate objects. Should people in this delusional viewpoint be enacting public policies that harm all of us? You know, governments have already, I mean, they have murdered far more unarmed people throughout history than any street criminal that ever lived. Statistically based upon the sheer body count, any government, is more of a threat to your physical safety and life than any number of common street citizens, criminals, whatever. Duh. Historically, gun control has also been a fundamental tool of the anti-Semitist. It's also racist and totalitarian because African Americans were the targets once of the first American gun prohibited scream, and gun control preceded every major genocide in the 20th century. There's a lot going on, and I'll show you something here. This is a reprint of the Nazi weapons law, November 11th, 1938. I have to zoom in on this thing. Regulations against Jews' possession of firearms. Okay. I don't know if there's anything on the other side of this or not. No, probably not. But something else, if you guys had this, I don't know how I missed not having this, because I always bought guns and ammo. But the original article appeared in Guns and Ammo magazine, May of 1993. And the guy that got hold of this original text of the Nazi weapon law had this thing in his possession 4 months before the bill became the Gun Control Act of 1968. And this guy, he was also a former senator and a senior member of the U.S. team that helped prosecute Nazi war criminals in Nuremberg, Germany in 1945 and 1946. That's probably where he found out about the Nazi weapon law. He had gotten a copy of it, and why? Nobody to this day knows why, unless this fella, which I'm going to name here in just a second, anyway, it's Dodd, Senator Dodd. I had it marked down, guys, and Buzzy lost it. Yeah. But anyway, I'll find this here in a minute. Okay, until 1943-44, the German government published all their laws and regulations in what they called this thing. Okay, I'm not going to try and pronounce it and mess it up. The Nazi weapon law of 1938 replaced the law on firearms and ammunition of April 1928. Then the Nazis inherited the list of all the firearm owners and where they were lawfully put, so they went and they removed them all. In 1938, 5 years after taking power, the Nazis enhanced the 1928 law. Okay? Anyway, given the parallels between the Nazi weapons law and the Gun Control Act, we concluded that the framers of the gun control lacking any other basis in American law to sharply cut back the civil rights of any law-abiding American, but they drew on Nazi weapons law of 1938. Excuse me. But then they got a break. And they got hold of a legal scholar who was there during the Nazi trials and he was helping out with the bills and stuff in Congress and the Senate. And they found out the Senate Judiciary Committee to Escape Juvenile Delinquency, chaired by Senator Dodd, Thomas J. Dodd, Democrat. Now my only thing that I could come up with why this guy did this, why he even had that in his possession, was basically he was a Russian in American clothing, wanted to disrupt the United States just like Schumer and the rest of them were doing. He was a closet Russian. So keep that in mind. I just wanted to bring this to you in case you didn't know. I didn't realize everything. Now this book, people, Okay, if you can find it, Gun Control, Gateway to Tyranny. Okay, and it was written by Aaron Zellman, and contributions by attorney Richard Stevens. You can find that book. It's 128 pages. Hang on to it. Thanks for watching.